The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky surface of Kepler 442c as Commander Park Hyun-woo made his daily rounds of Research Outpost Phoenix. The red-orange light painted the metal buildings in warm colors, but Park knew the beauty was deceiving. This planet was one of the most isolated places in human space, 3 months away from the nearest colony. 12 people called this remote world home, and Park was responsible for all of them. Park stopped at the main drilling site where mining supervisor Kang Tae-won was already at work. The massive drilling machine carved deep into the planet's crust, searching for the rare minerals that made this dangerous assignment worthwhile. These minerals were essential for building faster-than-light drives, the technology that allowed humans to travel between stars. "How deep are we today?" Park asked, watching the readouts on Kang's control panel. "Almost 2 kilometers down," Kang replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. "The mineral deposits are richer than we expected. Earth Command will be very happy with our reports." Park nodded and continued his rounds. The outpost was small but efficient. The main building housed their living quarters, communication center, and medical bay. Surrounding it were the mining facilities, storage units, and the small defense grid that Lee Dong-min insisted they maintain. Most colonies this remote had no defenses at all, but Lee had convinced Park that being prepared was always wise. Inside the communications center, Choi Min-ho was monitoring the daily data transmission to Earth. The young man looked up as Park entered, his face showing the boredom that came with routine work. "Same old reports today, Commander," Choi said. "Mining quotas, weather data, equipment, status. Nothing exciting ever happens out here." Park smiled. "Boring is good in our line of work, Min-ho. Exciting usually means something has gone wrong." In the medical bay, Dr. Yoon-ji Hae was running her weekly health checks on the team. She looked up from her data pad as Park entered. "Everyone is healthy," she reported, "though I'm still worried about the long-term effects of isolation. We've been here for 8 months with no outside contact except radio transmissions." "Just 4 more months until the supply ship arrives," Park reminded her. "We can handle it." The routine continued for the next 3 days. Kang and his team dug deeper into the planet's crust. Chief Engineer Kim So-ra maintained the complex machinery that kept them alive in this harsh environment. Security Chief Lee Dong-min ran training exercises that the others complained about but participated in anyway. Everything changed on the 4th day. Park was in his office reviewing mining reports when Kang burst through the door, his face pale with excitement. "Commander, you need to see this immediately," Kang said, barely able to contain himself. "We found something down there. Something that shouldn't exist." Park followed Kang to the drilling site where the entire team had gathered around the monitor screens. The images from the deep scanning equipment showed something impossible. Far below the surface, geometric shapes stretched in perfect patterns. These weren't natural rock formations. They were artificial structures, clearly built by intelligent beings. "How deep?" Park asked quietly. 3 kilometers down, Kim So-ra answered, studying the data. "The structures extend for several square kilometers. They're ancient, probably thousands of years old." Dr. Yoon leaned over the screens, her scientific training taking over. "The materials are unlike anything in our databases. The construction techniques are completely foreign to human engineering." Park felt his stomach tighten. First contact. Protocols were clear. Any discovery of alien intelligence had to be reported to Earth Command immediately. But they were alone out here, and these structures suggested that this planet had once been home to an advanced civilization. "Min-ho," Park said, his voice steady despite his racing thoughts. "Prepare an encrypted transmission to Earth Command. Include all the scan data and invoke Protocol 7. Choi Min-ho's eyes widened. Protocol 7 was the code for potential alien contact. "Yes, sir. The transmission will take 3 months to reach Earth and another 3 months for any response." "I know," Park said. "Until then, we continue with standard procedures. We document everything, but we don't disturb the structures. Nobody goes down there without my direct permission." Lee Dong-min stepped forward. "Commander, should we increase security protocols?" Park considered this. "Not yet, but run a full systems check on all our equipment. I want to know that everything is working perfectly. The next few days passed intense excitement. The team took turns studying the scan data, trying to understand what they had found. The structures appeared to be some kind of complex, possibly religious or ceremonial in nature. Dr. Yoon theorized that they might be burial sites, based on the symmetrical patterns and the way they were arranged. Kang wanted to drill directly into the structures, but Park refused. "We're not grave robbers," he said firmly. "We document and report, that's all." Kim Sora spent hours analyzing the construction materials shown in the scans. "Whoever built this was incredibly advanced," she said. "The engineering is beyond anything we could accomplish even today." On the 7th day after the discovery, Choi Min-ho rushed into the main building, his face white with fear. "Commander," he called out, his voice shaking. "Long-range sensors are detecting multiple contacts at the edge of the system. 12 ships, massive ones, just dropped out of hyperspace." Park felt ice in his veins. "Size and configuration?" "Each ship is over a kilometer long. Configuration is completely unknown. They're not human designs." The team gathered in the communications center, staring at the sensor displays in stunned silence. The ships were arranged in a perfect formation, clearly military in nature. They were holding position at the edge of the solar system, as if waiting for something. "Try to establish communication," Park ordered. "Use standard first contact protocols." For hours, Choi Min-ho broadcast greeting messages in every language and mathematical sequence humans had developed for first contact. The response was only silence. Then, just as the team was beginning to hope the ships might leave, the communication system crackled to life. The voice that came through was harsh and alien, speaking broken human standard language. "Attention, trespassers on the sacred world. You have violated the ancient resting place of our ancestors. You have 72 hours to leave this system. If you remain, you will be eliminated. There will be no further warnings." The transmission ended, leaving the 12 humans alone with the terrible knowledge that they were about to face something far beyond their ability to handle. Park looked around at his team, scientists, engineers, and miners who had signed up for a routine mission. None of them were soldiers except for Lee Dong-min. "Min-ho," Park said quietly. "What's our fastest route off this planet?" Choi Min-ho checked his systems. "The supply ship isn't due for 4 months. We have no faster-than-light capable vessels here. The emergency shuttle can't leave the system." Park nodded grimly. He had expected this answer, but hearing it confirmed made their situation terrifyingly clear. They were trapped on this remote world with 12 alien warships approaching, and there was nowhere to run. "All right, everyone," Park said, his voice calm despite the fear he felt. "We need to talk." The main meeting room of Outpost Phoenix had never felt so small. All 12 members of the team sat around the table, their faces showing the strain of the last 24 hours. Commander Park Hyun-woo looked at each person before speaking. "Let's be clear about our situation," Park began. "We have 71 hours before the deadline expires. We cannot leave the planet. We cannot outrun their ships. Our only choice is to defend ourselves or surrender." Dr. Yoon Ji-hai spoke first. "What do we know about them? The aliens who contacted us?" Choi Min-ho pulled up the communication data on the main screen. "I've been analyzing their transmissions. The language patterns suggest a highly organized military society. They use formal ranks and religious terminology. They called this planet a sacred world and mentioned ancestors. So we accidentally built our mining operation on their cemetery," Kang Tae-won said bitterly. "That explains why they're angry." Chief Engineer Kim So-ra leaned forward. "The question is, how angry are they? Angry enough to kill 12 humans over a misunderstanding. Their first message was pretty clear," Security Chief Lee Dong-min said grimly. "Eliminate all trespassers. That doesn't sound like they want to negotiate." Park stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the mining equipment continued its automated work, oblivious to the threat approaching from space. "Min-ho, have you tried sending diplomatic messages, explaining that we didn't know about the sacred sites?" "Yes, sir. I've sent 17 different messages over the past day. No response except for the original ultimatum." Dr. Yoon spoke up again. Commander, what if we offered to leave voluntarily? Explain that we need time to arrange transportation? I tried. That too, Choi Min-ho said. Complete silence. They don't seem interested in explanations. Lee Dong-min cleared his throat. Commander, I need to ask, are we seriously considering fighting alien warships with mining equipment? The room fell silent. Everyone understood the impossibility of their situation. 12 humans with basic defensive weapons against an unknown number of alien soldiers with advanced technology. Park turned back to face his team. I won't order anyone to fight. If someone wants to surrender individually, I understand. But I believe we need to consider all our options. What options? Kang asked. We're miners and scientists, not soldiers. We're humans, Park said firmly. And humans have survived impossible situations before. Sora, what kind of weapons could we improvise from our equipment? Kim Sora looked thoughtful. The mining charges are essentially explosives. We could modify them into mines or missiles. The drilling equipment uses high-energy lasers that could be weaponized. The ore processors could be converted into projectile weapons. How long would that take? Working around the clock, maybe 48 hours for basic modifications. But Commander, these are mining tools, they're not designed for combat. Lee Dong-min nodded. I can help with tactical planning. We have some advantages. We know the terrain, and they'll have to come to us. But honestly, our chances are not good. Dr. Yoon raised her hand. What about the structures underground? Could we use them for shelter? Absolutely not, Park said immediately. Those are sacred burial sites. Hiding in them would only make things worse. With respect, Commander, Lee Dong-min said, things are already as bad as they can get. If using those caves helps us survive, maybe we should consider it. Park thought about this. The alien structures were extensive, running for kilometers underground. They would provide excellent protection from orbital bombardment. But using them felt like desecrating graves. Let me think about it, Park said finally. Over the next day, the team worked frantically to prepare defenses. Kim So-ra led a group in converting mining equipment into weapons. She removed the safety systems from the explosive charges and rigged them as remotely detonated mines. The main drilling laser was detached from its housing and mounted on a mobile platform. Lee Dong-min surveyed the area around the outpost, identifying defensive positions and escape routes. The rocky terrain offered some natural cover, but not enough to stop a determined assault. Meanwhile, Choi Min-ho continued monitoring the alien fleet. They're moving closer, he reported. Still 12 ships, but they've entered the inner system. At their current speed, they'll reach orbit in 36 hours. Dr. Yoon spent her time studying the scan data from the underground structures. Commander, I think these might not just be burial sites. The patterns suggest they could be some kind of temple complex. Religious architecture from an advanced civilization. Park felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. 12. Lives depended on his decisions. Earth would not learn about their fate for months. Whatever happened here, they would face it alone. With 24 hours left before the deadline, the alien fleet reached orbit. Choi Min-ho's instruments detected active scanning beams sweeping across the planet's surface. They're mapping our defenses, Lee Dong-min observed. Getting ready for assault. Park made his decision. Sora, how much of the underground structure could we access quickly? The main mining shaft goes down close to the temple complex. We could break through in a few hours. Do it, we're going underground. Dr. Yoon looked concerned. Commander, if these really are sacred burial sites, then we'll treat them with respect, Park said. But we're not going to die up here just to avoid offending people who are already trying to kill us. The team worked through the night using the mining equipment to create access tunnels into the ancient structures below. Kim So-ra's engineering skills proved invaluable as she figured out how to break through without damaging the alien architecture. When they finally broke through, the team stood in amazed silence. The underground chambers were vast, with walls covered in intricate carvings and strange symbols. The construction was clearly the work of an advanced civilization, using materials and techniques that human science couldn't explain. It's beautiful, Dr. Yoon whispered. It's also defensible, Lee Dong-min noted, studying the tunnel layouts. Multiple entrances, natural choke points, thick walls that should stop most weapons. Park checked his watch. 8 hours until the deadline expired. Move everything essential underground, set up the defensive positions, and remember, we treat this place with respect. No damage to the structures unless absolutely necessary. As the team worked to relocate their operation underground, Choi Min-ho detected movement in orbit. Commander, the alien ships are launching smaller vessels, looks like troop transports. How many? I count at least 50 small ships. Each one appears to be carrying soldiers. Park nodded grimly. The time for preparation was over. In a few hours they would learn whether human ingenuity and determination could overcome alien superiority. Lee Dong-min finished setting up the last of their improvised weapons. Commander, we're as ready as we'll ever be. Park looked around at his team. Scientists and miners who had become soldiers out of necessity. They were scared, but they were determined. Whatever happened, they would face it together. All right, everyone. Let's see what these aliens are made of. The first alien dropships landed at dawn, their dark hulls gleaming in the red sunlight of Kepler 442c. From his hidden position in the rocks above the landing zone, Security Chief Lee Dong-min watched through binoculars as the ships disgorged their passengers. The aliens were impressive and terrifying. Each one stood nearly 3 meters tall with thick, armor-like skin that looked almost metallic. They moved with the disciplined precision of professional soldiers, carrying weapons that hummed with energy. Lee counted 200 troops in the first wave. Sora, are you ready with the welcome party? Lee whispered into his communication device. From her position near the mining equipment, Chief Engineer Kim So-ra's voice crackled back. Just give me the word. The modified ore processor is aimed at their landing zone. Commander Park Hyun-woo's voice came through the radio from the underground command center. Remember, we want to make them think twice about this assault. Show them that humans don't go down easy. The alien troops formed up into neat formations and began marching toward the outpost. Their leader, distinguished by more elaborate armor and weapons, gestured with what appeared to be tactical commands. They clearly expected this to be a simple operation against primitive humans. Lee waited until the alien troops reached the predetermined kill zone. Now, Sora! The modified ore processor fired with a sound like thunder. Instead of processing rock, it launched a cloud of metal fragments at incredible speed toward the alien formation. The improvised shrapnel weapon caught the aliens completely by surprise. The effect was devastating. The metal fragments tore through their ranks and their disciplined formation dissolved into chaos. Aliens that had seemed invincible moments before were now scattered and wounded, seeking cover behind rocks and debris. Direct hit, Sora reported with satisfaction. At least 30 aliens down, but the aliens learned quickly. Their leader barked orders in a harsh language, and the survivors began moving in smaller groups using proper combat tactics. They had energy weapons that burned through rock, and they knew how to use them. They're adapting, Lee reported. Moving to secondary positions, Park's voice was calm but urgent. Fall back to the underground entrance, let them come to us. The team had spent the previous day preparing the underground chambers for defense. Kim So-ra had rigged explosive charges at key choke points. Dr. Yoon Ji-hai had studied the alien technology from their scans and identified potential weaknesses. Choi Min-ho had set up communication jamming equipment to disrupt their coordination. As the surviving aliens approached the outpost, they triggered the first line of mines that Kim So-ra had placed around the perimeter. More explosions echoed across the rocky landscape, and the alien advance slowed significantly. From the underground command center, Park watched the tactical displays that Choi Min-ho had rigged up. They're being much more careful now. Good. Let them think every step might be their last. The aliens reached the entrance to the underground complex after 3 hours of careful advance. Their leader stood at the tunnel mouth, clearly frustrated by the resistance they had encountered. These humans were supposed to be easy targets. Dr. Yoon activated her special project. She had discovered that the aliens' armor conducted sound in a way that made certain frequencies painful to them. The sonic weapon she had built from medical equipment sent piercing tones through the tunnel system. The effect on the aliens was immediate. They clutched at their heads, their formation breaking apart as the painful sounds disrupted their nervous systems. Several aliens fled back toward their ships. "The sonic weapon is working," Dr. Yoon reported. "But they'll adapt to this too." She was right. Within minutes, the aliens had modified their helmets to block the sound frequencies, but the delay had cost them valuable time and more soldiers. Mining supervisor Kang Tae-won had been quiet during most of the fighting, but now he spoke up. "Commander, I have an idea. The geothermal vents we use for power, they connect to natural cave systems all over this area. We could use them to move around without being seen." Park's tactical mind immediately saw the possibilities. "Show me." Kang led a small team through maintenance tunnels to the geothermal plant. The heat was almost unbearable, but the tunnel system was extensive. They could emerge behind the alien forces and attack from unexpected directions. "Lee, take 2 people, and use the geothermal tunnels to circle around behind them," Park ordered. "Hit them from the rear while they're focused on the main entrance." The plan worked perfectly. While the alien troops concentrated on the fortified tunnel entrance, Lee and his team emerged from a geothermal vent 200 meters behind their lines. Using modified mining charges, they destroyed the aliens' communication equipment and supply depot. The alien leader was now facing a nightmare scenario. His forces were taking casualties from multiple directions. His communications were jammed, and the humans seemed to know the terrain better than his maps indicated. Kim Sora had one more surprise. She had spent hours rigging the main drilling laser to fire through the tunnel system. When the aliens finally breached the first defensive position, they found themselves facing a weapon that could cut through their armor like paper. "Drilling laser is online," Sora reported. "They won't be able to advance through the main tunnel." But the aliens were not giving up. Their leader called for reinforcements from orbit, and more dropships began landing. Park realized they were facing a much larger force than originally detected. "Minho, how many more ships are coming down?" Park asked. Choi Minho checked his sensors. At least 20 more dropships inbound. Were looking at over 1,000 alien soldiers. The team fell silent. They had performed better than anyone could have expected, but they were still just 12 humans against an army. Dr. Yoon spoke up from her position monitoring alien communications. "Commander, I'm picking up something interesting. The alien leader is arguing with someone, probably his superior. He's being ordered to minimize damage to the sacred sites." Park felt a spark of hope. They're limited in what weapons they can use down here. That's why they haven't just bombed us from orbit. It also means they'll keep sending troops instead of using heavy weapons, Lee pointed out. Kim So-ra had been working on something new. "Commander, I think I can modify the atmospheric processors to create toxic gas clouds. If we vent them into the tunnel system when the aliens advance, it might stop them without damaging the structures." "Do it," Park ordered. As the day progressed, the pattern continued. The aliens would advance, trigger traps and defenses, take casualties, and fall back to regroup. Each assault was stronger than the last, but each one also cost them more soldiers. By sunset, the alien leader had lost over 400 troops to 12 humans using mining equipment and clever tactics. His superiors were demanding results, but every attempt to rush the underground complex resulted in more casualties. Park gathered his team for a brief meeting during a lull in the fighting. "We've done well," he said. "Better than well. But we all know this can't last forever. They'll eventually overwhelm us through sheer numbers. So what do we do?" Kang asked. Park looked around at his tired, determined team. They had proven that humans could fight impossible odds and win, at least temporarily. But he needed a way to turn their tactical victories into strategic success. "We make them pay so dearly for every meter that they decide this planet isn't worth it," Park said. "And we hope that human stubbornness is stronger than alien pride." War Commander Vector stood in the command center of his flagship, staring at the casualty reports with growing rage. In 3 days of fighting, his forces had lost nearly 600 soldiers to 12 primitive humans. His reputation as a conqueror of worlds was being destroyed by miners and scientists. "Commander," his aide reported nervously, "the High Council is demanding immediate results. They're questioning your tactical abilities. Vectar's armored fist slammed into the control console. These humans fight like demons. They know every rock, every tunnel, every weakness in our approach. It's not natural for such a primitive species. On the planet below, Commander Park Hyun-woo was thinking the same thing about his own people. They had exceeded every expectation, turning impossible odds into a brutal stalemate, but he could see the strain on his team. Kim So-ra had dark circles under her eyes from working around the clock on weapon modifications. Lee Dong-min moved more slowly, his body showing the effects of constant combat. Even Dr. Yoon looked exhausted, from treating injuries and analyzing alien technology. Status report, Park called as he entered the underground command center. The atmospheric processors are working perfectly, Kim So-ra reported. The toxic gas cleared out their last assault in minutes, but we're running low on materials for modifications. Choi Min-ho looked up from his communication station. I'm still jamming their tactical communications, but they're adapting. They'll break through eventually. Medical situation? Park asked Dr. Yoon. 2 serious injuries, but everyone is mobile. I'm more worried about fatigue. We can't keep this pace up much longer. Park nodded grimly. He had been thinking the same thing. They needed to change the nature of the fight somehow. Min-ho, are you still monitoring their command frequencies? Yes, sir. And I've got something interesting. Their commander is under serious pressure from his superiors. There's talk of removing him from command if he doesn't show results soon. Park felt a spark of an idea forming. What about their religious restrictions? Are they still limiting their firepower to protect the sacred sites? Dr. Yoon pulled up her analysis of the alien communications. Yes, but there's internal conflict about it. Some of their commanders want to ignore the restrictions and use orbital bombardment. So their unity is cracking, Park mused. What if we could make that worse? Lee Dong-min looked up from cleaning his improvised weapons. What do you have in mind, Commander? Park walked to the display showing the underground structure they were defending. The ancient alien architecture stretched for kilometers in every direction, beautiful and complex. Min-ho, can you break into their communication system instead of just jamming it? Possibly. Their encryption is advanced, but I've been studying it for days. Why? I want to send them a message. But not to their commander. To his superiors. The idea was risky, but Park had learned that desperate situations called for desperate measures. Over the next several hours, while Kim So-ra continued improving their defenses, Choi Min-ho worked on cracking the alien communication codes. Meanwhile, Dr. Yoon made a discovery that changed everything. She had been studying the carved symbols in the underground chambers, trying to understand their meaning. Using her medical scanner to analyze the composition of the carvings, she found something impossible. Commander, she called excitedly, you need to see this immediately. Park rushed to her position in one of the deeper chambers. Dr. Yoon pointed her scanner at a series of carved panels depicting what appeared to be a great battle. These carvings aren't just decorative, she explained. They're historical records, and according to the dating analysis, they're much older than the aliens attacking us. What do you mean? The mineral composition shows these carvings are at least 10,000 years old, but the attacking aliens, the Korvathi, have only been spacefaring for about 3,000 years. Park stared at the carvings with new understanding. So this wasn't originally their sacred site. That's right. These carvings show the original inhabitants of this planet fighting against invaders. And Commander, look at this symbol here. She pointed to a recurring image in the battle scenes. It matches the design on the Korvathi armor. The implications hit Park like a physical blow. The Korvathi weren't the original owners of this planet. They were the invaders who destroyed whoever built these temples. Dr. Yoon nodded grimly. They conquered this world, wiped out the native civilization, and then declared the ruins sacred to justify their claim. Min-ho, Park called urgently. How's that communication breakthrough coming? Just finished cracking their encryption. Commander, I can send messages anywhere in their fleet. Perfect. I want you to transmit Dr. Yoon's findings to every ship in their fleet. Make sure everyone sees the evidence that their sacred sites are actually monuments to their own war crimes. As Choi Min-ho worked to broadcast the devastating revelation, Kim So-ra reported new activity on the surface. "Commander, they're massing for another assault. This one looks bigger than before." Park checked the defensive positions. They had held for 3 days, but every attack weakened their defenses a little more. They needed to end this soon. "How long until the broadcast is ready?" 2 minutes, Choi Min-ho replied. The alien assault began with a coordinated attack on multiple entrances to the underground complex. Hundreds of Korvathi soldiers poured into the tunnels, overwhelming the first line of defenses through sheer numbers. Kim So-ra triggered her latest modification. She had turned the geothermal vents into steam weapons, filling the tunnels with superheated vapor that forced the aliens to retreat. But even as the attack faltered, Park could see that their defenses were cracking. The aliens were learning from each assault, adapting their tactics, bringing more soldiers. "Broadcast is ready," Choi Min-ho announced. "Send it. All frequencies. Maximum power." Across the Korvathi fleet, communication officers suddenly found their systems flooded with historical data, archaeological evidence, and mineral analysis proving that the sacred sites on Kepler 442c were actually the remains of a civilization that the Korvathi themselves had destroyed. The effect was immediate and devastating. Religious leaders who had been supporting the military operation suddenly found themselves questioning everything they believed about their people's history. Military commanders who had been following orders to protect sacred sites discovered they were actually protecting evidence of ancient war crimes. War Commander Vektar watched in horror as his fleet descended into chaos. Ships began breaking formation as their crews argued about the revelations. Some commanders demanded immediate withdrawal, while others insisted the evidence was human propaganda. On the planet, Park's team could hear the confusion in the alien communications. "Their command structure is falling apart," Lee Dong-min reported with satisfaction. "Some units are withdrawing without orders, but not all of them." Vektar himself led a final desperate assault on the human positions, determined to salvage his reputation by completing the mission through sheer force. "Here they come," Kim So-ra warned. "This is the big one." Park looked around at his exhausted team. They had fought the impossible fight and revealed the truth that could end this war, but they still had to survive the next few hours. "All right, everyone, one more time. Let's show them what humans are made of." The final battle for the underground complex was about to begin, and everything hung in the balance. War Commander Vektar descended into the underground complex with his personal guard of 50 elite warriors. His reputation was in ruins, his fleet was in chaos, but he would not be defeated by a handful of humans. He would drag their commander into single combat and restore his honor through personal victory. Commander Park Hyun-woo watched the alien leaders approach through the security cameras that Kim So-ra had rigged throughout the tunnel system. This was exactly what he had hoped, for lure the enemy commander into the deepest parts of the complex where human advantages would be greatest. "He's taking the bait," Park reported to his team. "Vektar is coming down with his elite troops. Everyone stick to the plan." The plan was desperate but brilliant. Instead of fighting a defensive battle they could not win, Park intended to use the underground complex as a trap. Kim So-ra had been working for hours on her masterpiece, a network of explosive charges that could collapse specific sections of the tunnel system while leaving others intact. Dr. Yoon had mapped the structural weak points in the ancient architecture, identifying exactly where to place charges for maximum effect. Choi Min-ho had hacked into the Outpost's geological sensors, giving them real-time information about ground stability. As Vektar and his warriors advanced through the tunnels, they triggered the first phase of the trap. Kim So-ra detonated charges behind them, sealing off their retreat route. The aliens found themselves committed to advancing deeper into the complex with no way back. "Phase 1 complete," So-ra reported. "They're committed now." Lee Dong-min was positioned at strategic points throughout the tunnel system with the remaining team members. As the aliens advanced, they found themselves under constant harassment from humans who seemed to appear from nowhere, strike quickly, and disappear into passages too small for the larger aliens to follow. Mining supervisor Kang Tae-won had become surprisingly effective at guerrilla warfare. His knowledge of the mining tunnels allowed him to move through areas the aliens didn't even know existed. He had rigged improvised explosive devices throughout the complex, turning every step into a potential danger. "Kang, report," Park called through the communication system. "Just took out another 5 aliens near Sector 7, Kang replied, sounding much more confident than he had days earlier. "They're getting frustrated and making mistakes." Dr. Yoon was monitoring the aliens' biological responses through sensors she had placed throughout the complex. "Commander, their stress levels are extremely high. The enclosed spaces and constant threats are affecting their psychological state. The Korvathi were powerful warriors, but they were used to open battlefields where their size and strength gave them advantages. The narrow tunnels and maze-like passages of the underground complex neutralized many of their natural abilities. Vector realized he was being led deeper into a trap, but his pride would not allow him to retreat. He had claimed he would drag the human commander into personal combat, and he intended to keep that promise. "Human," he bellowed in broken human standard, his voice echoing through the tunnels. "Face me in honorable combat. Stop hiding like a coward." Park was ready for this moment. He had been studying the alien leader through the security cameras, learning his movement patterns and fighting style. More importantly, he had prepared the perfect location for their confrontation. "This is Commander Park," he broadcast through the communication system. "I accept your challenge, Vector. Come to the central chamber. Come alone if you have the courage." The central chamber was the heart of the ancient complex, a vast circular room with carved walls depicting the history of the original inhabitants. Dr. Yoon had discovered that this room had special acoustic properties that would give Park an advantage. Vector left his remaining warriors and entered the chamber alone, his massive form dwarfed by the soaring architecture. Park was waiting in the center of the room, looking impossibly small compared to his alien opponent. "You are brave, human," Vector admitted, drawing his energy weapon. "But bravery will not save you from justice." "Justice?" Park replied. "You mean like the justice you gave to the people who built this place?" While the two commanders faced each other in the central chamber, Kim So-ra was preparing the final phase of her plan. She had spent days studying the geological structure beneath the outpost, and she had discovered something remarkable. The entire area sat on an unstable geological formation. With the right application of force at specific points, she could trigger a controlled collapse that would destroy the alien ships on the surface while leaving the underground complex intact. "Commander," she broadcast to Park through his earpiece, "I need 5 more minutes to complete the setup." Park nodded slightly, understanding that he needed to buy time. He began circling the alien commander, studying his movements and looking for weaknesses. Vector was faster and stronger than any human, but Park had advantages of his own. He knew every inch of this chamber, and he had prepared for this fight. The battle began with Vector's energy weapon firing where Park had been standing a moment before. The human commander had already moved, using his knowledge of the chamber's acoustic properties to predict where the alien would aim based on sound. Park's weapon was much simpler, a modified mining tool that fired metal spikes with tremendous force. But he had to get close to use it effectively, and Vector's reach was much longer. The fight moved around the chamber as Park used every trick he could think of. He triggered hidden flash charges that temporarily blinded the alien. He used the carved walls as cover and the irregular floor to trip his larger opponent. Meanwhile, the rest of the team was executing their part of the plan. Lee Dongmin and his group had eliminated most of Vector's elite guard, while Kang had sealed off additional escape routes. The surviving aliens were trapped in the collapsing tunnel system with no way to reach the surface. 2 minutes, Kim So-ra announced. Park was tiring, but Vector was showing signs of wear as well. The alien's energy weapon was running low on power, and the environmental conditions in the chamber were affecting his performance. Dr. Yoon had been right about the acoustic properties. Every sound in the chamber was amplified and distorted, making it difficult for Vector to track Park's movements accurately. "You fight without honor," Vector growled as Park dodged another attack. "I fight to survive." Park replied. Just like your people did when they destroyed the civilization that built this place. The words hit Vectar like a physical blow. The revelation about his people's true history had shaken his confidence more than he wanted to admit. Ready, Commander, Kim So-ra announced. Park made his final move. Using a charge he had placed behind one of the carved panels, he created a distraction that allowed him to get close enough to use his weapon effectively. The metal spike punched through Vectar's armor, and the alien commander fell. Do it, So-ra, Park commanded. The underground explosions began in sequence, each one carefully timed and placed. The geological formation that supported the area began to shift and collapse in a controlled manner. On the surface, the alien ships that had been landed near the outpost found themselves sinking into suddenly unstable ground. The Korvathi vessels that remained in orbit watched in horror as their landing force was buried beneath tons of rock and debris. Their assault troops were trapped underground with no possibility of rescue. But the underground complex itself remained intact, protected by the ancient engineering of its original builders. The humans had not only survived the assault, but had turned the planet itself into a weapon against their attackers. As the explosions ended and the dust settled, Park stood over the defeated alien commander in the silent chamber. Around him, the carved walls told the story of another people who had fought impossible odds against alien invaders. It's over, he said quietly into his communicator. The 12 humans of Outpost Phoenix had done the impossible. They had not only survived an assault by thousands of alien warriors, but they had captured the enemy commander and destroyed his entire ground force. Now they had to decide what to do with their victory. The silence in the underground complex was broken only by the distant settling of rock and debris. Commander Park Hyun-woo stood over the wounded form of War Commander Vectar, both of them breathing heavily from their fight. Around them, the ancient carved walls seemed to watch with the wisdom of ages. Commander, Kim So-ra's voice crackled through the communication system. Surface sensors show complete success. All 12 alien ships are either destroyed or disabled. None of them are capable of leaving orbit. Park pressed his hand to his earpiece. Casualties? 2 minor injuries from the explosions, but everyone is alive, Dr. Yoon reported. We did it, Commander. We actually did it. Park looked down at Vectar, who was struggling to sit up despite his wound. The alien commander's armor was cracked, and his pride was shattered, but his eyes still burned with fury. Kill me then, human, Vectar growled. Complete your victory. That's not how humans fight, Park replied, offering his hand to help the alien stand. We defend ourselves, but we don't murder prisoners. Vectar stared at the offered hand in confusion. In Korvathi culture, defeated enemies were either killed or enslaved. The concept of mercy was foreign to him. Lee Dongmin's voice came through the communicator. Commander, we've secured the surviving aliens. About 300 prisoners total. They're not resisting anymore. Good. Treat them fairly, and provide medical attention for the wounded. Over the next several hours, the full scope of their victory became clear. The 12 humans had not only survived an assault by 3,000 alien warriors, but they had captured most of the survivors and destroyed the entire invasion fleet. Choi Min-ho worked to establish communication with the Korvathi ships, still in orbit. The revelation about the true history of the sacred sites had split the alien fleet into factions. Some commanders wanted to continue the assault, but others were demanding immediate withdrawal. This is Commander Park of Earth Defense, Park broadcast to the alien fleet. Your ground forces have surrendered. Your ships are disabled, but we're willing to negotiate a peaceful resolution to this conflict. The response came from Sub-Commander Krelthar, Vectar's second in command. What terms do you offer, human? Park had been thinking about this moment since the fighting began. They had won an impossible victory, but what came next would determine whether this became the beginning of a larger war or the foundation for peace. First, recognition that this planet contains sacred sites belonging to the original inhabitants, not the Korvathi Empire. Second, reparations for the damage caused by your unprovoked attack. Third, establishment of formal diplomatic relations between our species. There was a long pause before Krelthar responded. "And our people who are your prisoners? Will be treated according to the laws of war and returned safely once these terms are accepted." Dr. Yoon had been studying the alien prisoners, trying to understand their psychology and culture. She reported to Park privately that many of them seemed genuinely shocked by the revelations about their history. "Commander, I think we have an opportunity here," she said. "These aliens value honor and tradition above almost everything else. Learning that their sacred mission was based on lies has shaken them badly." Park nodded. He had seen the same thing in Vektar's behavior. The proud warrior was struggling with the knowledge that his entire worldview had been built on deception. Kim So-ra had been working on another project during the negotiations. Using the alien technology they had captured, she was reverse engineering their communication and propulsion systems. "Commander, you need to see this," she called excitedly. "Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it's based on principles we can understand. With time, we could adapt it for human use." The implications were staggering. The knowledge gained from this encounter could advance human technology by decades. More importantly, it would give humanity the tools needed to defend against future alien threats. Kang Taiwan had made his own discovery while clearing debris from the mining operation. "Commander, the geological disturbances have exposed new mineral deposits. The ones we can see are worth more than our entire previous operation." Mining supervisor Kang was no longer the frightened civilian who had started this ordeal. Like all of them, he had been transformed by the experience of fighting impossible odds and winning. After 3 days of negotiations, Sub-Commander Krelthar agreed to the human terms. The surviving Korvathi would be returned to their people, but they would also carry the truth about the ancient civilization they had destroyed. "This will cause problems in our empire," Krelthar admitted during the final negotiations. "Many will refuse to believe the evidence." "That's not our problem," Park replied. "Truth has a way of spreading, especially when it's backed by solid evidence." The day finally came when Earth Command responded to their original distress signal. The rescue fleet that arrived expecting to find a destroyed outpost instead discovered 12 humans who had become legends. Admiral Chen Wei, the fleet commander, stared in amazement at the scene. Disabled alien warships floated in orbit. Hundreds of alien prisoners were being held in improvised camps, and the human outpost was not only intact, but had been expanded underground. "Commander Park," the Admiral said during their first meeting, "your report is going to be very difficult for Earth Command to believe. I have complete documentation, sir. Combat recordings, captured alien technology, and testimony from the prisoners themselves." Dr. Yoon had compiled a comprehensive report on the ancient civilization they had discovered. The archaeological evidence would revolutionize human understanding of galactic history and their place in it. "More importantly," Park continued, "we've established first contact protocols that actually work. The key is showing strength while maintaining honor." The prisoners were eventually transferred to Earth for formal prisoner exchange and diplomatic discussions. Many of them, including Vektar himself, became advocates for peace between their species. Kim So-ra was promoted to head of colonial defense engineering and tasked with developing new defensive technologies based on captured alien systems. Her innovations would protect human colonies for generations to come. Lee Dong-min established the Colonial Defense Corps, training other security personnel in the tactics that had proven successful against alien threats. Choi Min-ho developed new communication protocols for first contact situations, preventing the kind of misunderstandings that had led to this conflict. Dr. Yoon became the head of the new Xenoarchaeology department, leading the study of ancient civilizations and their technologies. Kang Taiwan led the effort to properly excavate and preserve the sacred sites while continuing the mining operation that had brought them there in the first place. Commander Park was promoted to Admiral and given command of the Deep Space Defense Network that would protect humanity's expanding frontier. The Battle of Kepler 442c, as historians would later call it, became a turning point in human history. It proved that humans could face overwhelming odds and not just survive, but triumph through courage, ingenuity, and determination. But perhaps more importantly, It established humanity's reputation in the galaxy as a species that fought with honor and treated enemies with dignity. The 12 humans who had held a planet against 3,000 aliens became symbols of everything that made humanity special. Years later, when other alien species made contact with humanity, they came with respect rather than contempt. They had heard the stories of the humans who had turned mining equipment into weapons and used ancient burial sites to defeat a superior enemy. The galaxy learned that humans were not the weak, primitive species that many had assumed. They were something far more dangerous and valuable. They were survivors who refused to give up, no matter how impossible the odds appeared. And in the depths of Kepler 442c, the ancient carved walls continued to tell their story, not just of the civilization that had been destroyed, but of the one that had learned to defend what was right no matter the cost.